Before we get started, just a reminder that you can find all of my available rental properties on my website at marcguzman.com. If you own investment property, click on the Owner Services section to see our complete list of services. This episode is brought to you by Beniked Commercial Real Estate. There's more to building wealth in real estate than simply buying and holding. You need to have an entry and exit strategy. You need to know when to invest, have a plan to maximize return during the holding period, and have an exit strategy to sell and exchange the property into a bigger investment. This takes a set of highly qualified professionals to guide you from buying your first investment property to eventually upgrading to the 100-unit complex, providing wealth for you and your family. Brian Beniked and David Peel have over 35 years of combined experience specializing in helping families build wealth through real estate. They assist you in putting your investment on autopilot and will guide you along each exchange. Visit them at www.bcre.co. Again, that's www.bcre.co to give your future a jumpstart. The 2018 election is just a month away, and as you probably know, California's Prop 10 is among the biggest issue on the ballot. Each day, you're probably seeing ads saying that Prop 10 won't solve the housing crisis or that Prop 10 will help out low-income families. So what will California look like after the Prop 10 vote? We asked Cynthia Peterson of Alain Pinel Realtors and Eva Elderts of Duhdam Real Estate to weigh in on the issues. We also dig more into the current Bay Area housing market, as well as discuss up-and-coming neighborhoods in the region. It was at the old studio.
That's right.
My old office. Mm-hmm. And then the same with you, right?
I've been here.
Oh, you've been here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was here with Cameron Platt.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We've got Cameron coming on, I believe, in November. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good episode. I was a little intimidated, but I was like so new. Well, I still am, but he's really kind of cool. So it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, these real estate episodes, I'm getting a lot of really good feedback because, number one, it's just talking with, I do property management, but then talking with all the real estate agents and just seeing how the housing market and rental market really combine and work together.
Oh, sure.
It's a lot of the very similar issues that we all deal with, because you might be selling properties, but then I'm helping the clients manage the properties, and then they go right back to you guys to then sell them. So we're all in this one crazy loop together.
Yeah.
Did you get the presidential alert this morning?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone's talking about that
Everyone's
online
like,
right
don't
now.
worry about it. I'm like, oh, okay. And somebody had that I was working out with knew about it. So because I was like, what is this?
I hit ignore pretty fast.
Yeah. I was in the office and the gal behind me was like, showed them. I turned my phone off. And I was like, I should have done that. I jumped probably 10 feet out of my chair. I was like, what is this?
As soon as they turn their phone back on, it'll pop up.
Okay. You can't escape it. Well, that makes sense. Yeah,
No, it's a national emergency alert, right? Yeah,
right,
so
like
I think
alert.
So that's going to come through, I think, regardless. But it's going to be interesting to see how he uses it, though.
Right.
That's going to be the big thing.
So scary. Oh, gosh.
There was, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel who posted on Twitter right after. He says, did anyone else get this? And it was a Photoshop photo, but it said presidential alert, confirm Kavanaugh, MAGA, fake news, and just had all his taglines, right?
Yeah. How funny.
Yeah. So thank you to the two of you for coming back on the podcast. We've got a lot to talk about, especially now with the November 2018 elections coming up here for California. There's some really big topics, but let's kind of recap. So for a lot of the listeners, I've had Cynthia and Eva on before. Go back, check out their episodes. Sam, if you can maybe just look up their episodes and we'll reference it later on in the show. But how's real estate been for you? Eva, let's start with you.
Busy.
Busy? That's a good thing.
It's a good thing. I got a lot of experience over the summer, which I needed. A lot of exposure also. So it was exciting, but exhausting. Learned some really tough lessons.
What's the toughest lesson you learned?
Pay attention to red flags. Don't want a listing so bad that you get yourself into something that isn't going to materialize into what you want it to be. So, yeah.
Over
The
time,
rose-colored glasses syndrome, right?
yeah. Over time, you get much better at that. Over time, you start to recognize a lot of these red flags early on, and you're able to catch them, kind of nip them in the butt early on, and then sometimes you just, it is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm enjoying it. Love my brokerage. I'm meeting a lot of friends and going to a lot of events, and it's just a lifestyle. It's 24/7, always, just living, breathing real estate. So
Client texts you at 10 o'clock. You could be at a party or something on a Friday night,
Yeah.
Saturday night. Guess what? You're responding back. Even if it's as
It's
simple
tough to
as,
turn off.
hey, I'll call you tomorrow.
exactly.
Yeah, you're still responding. Yeah. Cynthia, how's business for you?
It's been great also. Also, a lot of learning and experience happened this summer. I would say my biggest thing that I learned was read that commission demand, because you might have thought that you put
Sure.
3.5, but then it comes in and it's 3, and hey, you just lost yourself a half a percentage, which starting out is a pretty big deal,
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that, and I have learned to try to shift to turn off work at a certain hour. It's so hard though, just like you're saying, it's 24/7. So I did get a new phone, and now I'm like managing these 2 phones, and that's kind of yucky.
You didn't get the new iPhone X10s, did you?
Did.
Are you having the charging issue that some people are having?
Oh, Lord, no. I went 2 days straight of using it like nonstop.
Really? I can't wait to get it. I'm
Oh, it's
getting it.
amazing. I was at 86% at the end of day 2.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
No, I can't. That's
I
great.
was like totally
That's worth it
flabbergasted.
just there.
Oh, yeah. And especially as much as we do use our phones, as much as we're on it, I was just amazed. Yeah.
So you're doing the 2 phone thing. That's
I
your,
am.
Okay.
And it's still a transition.
Sure.
For sure. I've had it less than a month. So I'm still trying to figure it out. But disconnecting, we were just saying, disconnecting from our phones for an hour is so tough, because we do have clients that we're constantly talking to. And so it's just been a big learning experience.
Yeah, you know what app that I found very useful? I use Gmail. Do you guys use Gmail?
Yes.
Okay. So Boomerang. So it's free. They used to have a paid upgraded version, but I don't know what happened. But April 4th of this year, they said we're giving it for free to everyone. So they gave it for free, all their features. You download it, it goes right into your Gmail as an app. So it's built into Gmail. What it does is you can schedule emails out. And so it's very useful because sometimes, if I send this email out now, I'm going to get a response here in the next hour or 2 from the client.
Right.
And then I have to deal with it, and I've got other stuff to deal with. So I can schedule emails out at specific times
Right.
to where I know, okay, I've got more free time on my schedule. So if they do reply, I can handle
That's
it.
great.
So you can budget your time that way. But they also have a great feature called Pause Inbox, where you can schedule for emails to come into your inbox on an hourly basis every 30 minutes, maybe. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So it's not live, and it'll
Right.
hold the emails until, let's say you put it for hourly increments or 3 times a day, whatever the case is. That way emails are coming in only on those specific times.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a neat little way to kind of just detach yourself a little bit and manage your day. It's beautiful. I highly recommend it. I've only been using it for a week.
It's already changed your life.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it has. It has. So, real quick, what areas do you cover when you're selling property, representing buyers? What areas?
East Bay area. I live in
Generally
Danville.
anywhere in the East Bay?
Anywhere in the East Bay.
Likewise, yeah, East Bay. My most recent listing is also out in the Delta area, so now I'm starting to become much more familiar with that also. I've had a couple clients buy out there, so
Great.
it's nice to know that area. And then also Vallejo, I'm in love with that,
wow.
and Benicia. Yeah,
Great
so
housing market in Vallejo.
It is definitely.
Vallejo's a little hidden gem that a lot of people
Yes.
forget about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I'm kind of the mentality of have car, will travel. I'm here to help everyone.
Sure.
So that's where I'm like, oh, you're up in Benicia? Okay, I'll just cross the toll. All good.
Exactly.
Great. So before we get into Prop 10, which is one of the big topics, just for the listeners and the viewers, so if you want to see the episode with Ava, it was Real Realtors episode 21, and for Cynthia, Real Realtors episode number 9. So that's how far, wow, number 9.
Wow.
That was
and
a while
with
back.
Roxanne. That was fun too.
Yeah. And these are numbered for the real estate episodes, which we're on episode number 48 for the real estate episodes.
48, okay.
But for the podcast, we're on this is going to be episode 164.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we just
That's
started this
incredible.
August of last year, so we're rock and rolling.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Prop 10. Have you two been keeping up with Prop 10 and all the probably you've seen all the news advertisements on television and I know the California Association of Realtors, they're doing I think a pretty good job in at least getting the word out to the realtors. Realtors are getting the word out to other realtors and their clients. And right now it looks like if they did a poll today, 46% are against Prop 10 and 36 is in favor of Prop 10. And Prop 10 would basically eliminate Casa-Hawkins Act. So I want to get your opinion on it. Ava, let's start with you. Prop
Sure.
10, what's your personal opinion on it?
I'm opposed, primarily because I was a property owner pretty young, and I had gone through a divorce and had 2 children. And the reason I was able to raise them in downtown Walnut Creek, really great schools, education was a big deal for me, was because I had a couple rental properties, which I believe if we had rent control, it would have been a lot more difficult for me to turn those over and, kind of keep up with the market and raise the rents when appropriate. And they, were able to live in a nice home and go to great schools, which would have been a real struggle with me being single the entire time that they were in school. So,
Cynthia, what's your opinion on Prop 10?
I'm also opposed. I think that there's just much better ways that we could handle the housing crisis.
Yes.
Rather than just a full repeal.
sure.
I think that there's, it's just a lack of inventory for low income individuals. We just need to build those units, and the whole NIMBY effect just really needs to be put by the wayside, and we need to realize that we've got so many jobs here. We've got so many
So
individuals. We can't house all these people. So, folks get so aggravated with the housing issues and with homelessness. But yet again, they're not willing to have new units placed in their towns. And it's like, well, you
Right.
can't have the best of both worlds and then not expect to see a housing crisis or homelessness. So I'm very opposed to it as well.
So you said something very interesting. You hear a lot of people say we need inventory is low, we need more housing supply. But you're the first person I heard say we need more housing supply for low income. And that's one of the problems with rent control is that there's no way to guarantee it really goes to help low income families, which is really one of the big arguments in favor of rent control. And I use this example where I know people that have a rent control apartment in Oakland or San Francisco, and they don't live there most of the days because they own a house in Pinel. They own a house, they live in Pinel, but they're like, oh, when I want to do my weekend vacation in San Francisco, I've got a place to stay as opposed to renting a hotel room.
Sure.
So they have a rent control apartment. Is that really helping them? Not really. It doesn't help anyone, but it encourages them to keep it. And that's one property that could be on the supply market that's not there because of it.
Right.
So I think if there was a way, as far as solutions, have you thought about solutions yourself? What can be done?
Well, in my opinion, it goes back to NIMBY, not in my backyard. Yes, we do live in amazing communities, and we do have these infrastructures where, for example, let's say, I'm just thinking of a random location on Monument Boulevard where the little El Pollo Loco is about to open up. We could, instead of building another fast food restaurant, let's look at that lot. let's see, can we drill down and have the parking structure for a low-income housing apartment complex be built down and then the whole apartment complex be built up on top of that? You know, I think that it's just
Like retail on the bottom, apartments on top.
that's exactly it.
Better control and use of the land.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my gosh, there's so many fast food restaurants that I think that if we just took a small percentage of those lots and rezoned them into some housing and really took a look at, well, can we go below or can we go above? Because I know, like, for Walnut Creek, you can only build so high.
They're very restrictive.
Right.
Right.
And so instead of building so high, how about we build below? You know, I just think that we
More
need to
urban.
Exactly. We
Right.
need to look at all the solutions that we do have and bite our tongues with the whole NIMBY thing, you
Yeah,
know?
that's a real big issue, the not in my backyard.
Yeah.
You have people complaining about soaring rental prices, soaring home prices. And when the solution is brought up, well, okay, we could build more affordable housing here in your neighborhood. And this is it, we need to build up because there's just no land. We have to build up. And then they come back and say, no, we don't want that. That's going to be bad for our neighborhood. Go build it in someone else's neighborhood, right? And then that neighborhood saying the exact same thing. And you end up with a problem. Well, where can we develop and build? It's going to be very interesting to see how that new law here in California, and I can't think of the actual the bill that was passed, like the number on the bill, but it was passed early this year that allows developers to streamline the approval process to where if they draw up plans to build and develop and it meets all the city's current zoning requirements, it's automatic approval. If the city denies them, which there's many cities that are known to do that, even if it falls under their approved plans, then the city gets fined, I believe, $100,000. And if they don't approve it, they can get fined another $100,000. And I believe Cupertino was the first city to deny a developer, and the developer sued them earlier this year. So I haven't actually. I probably should make a note to follow up on that. So I'm not sure where that's going, but I know there's a lawsuit right now, developer against Cupertino, to develop because they tried to stop them, and it's the first lawsuit under this new law.
Well, and if we repeal Costa-Hawkins, it makes it so that the developers are like, well, why build here?
Right.
What's the purpose?
Cities need to give more incentive to property owners and developers to encourage, City of Concord right now is known throughout the development community that it's really easy to pull a permit to do some work. Aside from that, Lafayette's a nightmare. Walnut Creek, it's non-existent in Danville.
Pleasant Hill, likewise, yeah.
There needs to be some sort of programs put into place where the cities will, have something. There's a reason that they're going to, be more like Concord and take that structure and make it go everywhere.
Yeah.
Suburbs always are going to try to fight, urban movement, but we're past that now. We have all these jobs. We have all these millions of people moving into California.
Right, yeah.
A lot of baby boomers leaving because California doesn't care for their elderly very well. And so how are we going to keep up?
Yeah, I think one of the other issues with this also is I think if you're not a homeowner right now, you're I think mainly in favor of building more inventory housing because that's going to make it more affordable for you to jump into the housing market. But once you become a homeowner, really you kind of don't want that inventory to increase because that's going to hurt your equity, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And I think we need to get into a conversation at what point should homeowners really get on the bandwagon of, hey, we need more housing inventory because it's just going to be greater for the people overall, even if I lose equity on my home. Because there's a law firm that came out with a great study a year ago that said if 25% of all single-family homes were allowed to build an accessory dwelling unit in the back. So
Exactly.
basically studio, in-law unit,
Yes.
whatever you want to call it, the entire housing market would be solved because people would have places to
That
live.
is a very, very good resolution.
But when you say housing inventory, the crisis would be solved, that also means prices would drop because inventory goes up. If prices drop, you're looking at rental prices dropping, you're looking at equity dropping. And when you start having that conversation, you have a lot of people that really don't like the idea of their equity dropping, especially after experiencing 2008 crash and seeing some of their equity completely wiped out. There's a lot of people that are probably not going to want that. And so I think psychologically, that's an underlying factor, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you're getting taxed on any income that alternative dwelling would bring in. So it's different than home equity. So yeah, poses an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. So at what point do we say, hey, we just need to build more housing to accommodate everyone that wants to live here? Or, and that would mean I might lose some equity on my home,
Which no one wants to do.
which no one wants to
including
do.
myself, ever.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
So at what point do we find a solution? Because the solution is, hey, we have to lose some equity because we have to build inventory, and the result of building that inventory is going to be our equity drops. So where's the middle balance on that?
It's such a double-edged sword. You're right, Mark, for sure. But I think that in California specifically, we are, from my experience, we're a lot more willing to help each other out.
True.
So I do see kind of that little, maybe it's the rose-colored glasses like we were talking about, but I do see that folks here are much more prone to saying, yeah, we'll take this little cut. Well, could be a big cut. We'll take this cut if it helps, because we oftentimes have family members who, I'm a homeowner, but then my aunt or my niece, they can't find affordable housing. Well, yes, we're taking a cut as the homeowner, but it's also helping out your family or your friends.
The community at large.
Exactly.
Sure. I mean, right. The more educated people are, in general, they like to help out the community. And
Yeah, so it becomes a conversation. At what point do we say community comes before my own equity?
right.
That's a tough
so
question,
tough.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a tough question. And at first instinct, you're like, no, of course I want to help out the community. But then, wait a minute, I've got my own financial, I need to keep my own financial well-being at the same time too, right? And equity tends to be a part of it. For many homeowners, that tends to be most of their savings. I mean, and technically, equity is worthless until you tap into it, right? If you're living in a property for 10 years and equity fluctuates up and down, to be honest, that doesn't matter to you. It's not money in the bank for you. It's just, well, it could be potential money, right? And so when you tap into it, that's when it becomes really worthwhile for you, right? Because you're tapping into it. So, but a lot of people really, that's their savings.
Right.
Their equity, they consider that their savings when technically it's not savings, and yeah, it's really complicated.
It's like a reward for being so financially responsible, committing to a mortgage payment, which is not easy, especially now with home prices the way they are. I bought when I was young. It was easier, but things happen along the way, and you do have to tap into it sometimes. And you always want it to be there.
And think about, even if you're responsible in saving up money. Let's say you get into the job market and you're lucky, you got a great job, your bills are low, and it's 2010. And you're like, okay, I can save up so much money per year and I'll be able to buy in 8 years. Now it's 2018 and prices are
Right.
double or even triple in some areas than 2010.
Yeah.
Now what? Now you can't even afford it, even though you budgeted. So again, it goes back to, at what point do we say we need more inventory? I'm okay to let go of my equity a little bit, but for the community, let's provide more housing.
Well, is that part, could those homeowners that, like the scenario from 2010 to 2018, Could those homeowners then do a 1031 exchange?
No, so I'm talking about someone 2010 who got into the job market and is
Right.
not a homeowner that
Oh,
wants to
I
buy a
see.
home.
Not a homeowner yet.
I
Correct.
see.
So they want to
Gotcha.
buy a house and they're thinking 2010 prices. They're like, okay, I can buy something in 8 years if I save. 8
Well, and
years
they're
later.
just watching it go up and up and up and up.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very discouraging too because every single year you start to realize that affordability gets smaller and smaller and possibly at a point to where you can't even afford it by the time it gets to 2018, right? So it's a really tough conversation and I think it's a lot of compromise. But then on the flip side, you have household income that's continuing to rise. There's a economist from San Diego. There's an economist from San Diego that came up to the Bay Area and did a presentation on Bay Area real estate, including income. And it was very interesting to see what he was putting out there because the household income in the Bay Area has been going up for the last 20 years. Now we're talking about households. So if you have two families that move in together, now they're one household, right?
Yes.
But household income has been going up, and right now it's an average of $110,000. So one of the other arguments is, well, you've got more people packing into housing.
This
You
is
have
true.
more money available in that house, and together they're able to split the rents. So you could have a really high mortgage or a high rent price, but it becomes very affordable when you have two families or even three families splitting the bill. Now they have more flexibility to even offer more in the events where they're competing for property.
Yes.
So how much inventory do we really have to put on the market to accommodate a lot of this incoming cash? I mean, there's a lot of layers to it. It's a
Yeah.
really complicated discussion.
It's a big ol' onion, that's for sure. Yeah, because realistically, no one wants to take a bite of it, right? Homeowners
Sure.
don't want to take a bite of it, but at the same time, the more we start peeling away at it, the more we're starting to see we've got a huge crisis on our hands here.
Now, when dealing with clients, whether it's sellers or buyers, does Prop 10 come up? Does Costa-Hawkins come up? Is that a concern from your client side?
Not so far. I recently have been talking with a seller of a fourplex that is in a rent-controlled area. And so that there's a lot of conversation about, who's appropriate to rent and, how those usually sit on the market for a really long time, especially in rent-controlled areas.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what just came up recently. And I was trying to find, resolutions to that, like ideally it would be great if, or a couple of buyers that wanted to live there and then rent out the other 2 units. But it's a lot easier when people, cohabitate. And the whole Airbnb phenomenon has worked really well for especially women. But
The problem
not
with
sure of the future of that because there are certain cities that outlaw it
Yeah,
entirely.
I was just going to
right?
mention that the problem with
and that's going to
Airbnb.
continue to grow, right? Because it increases traffic on someone's street or court or, just little nuisances that people aren't a fan of. So who knows how long that whole thing's going to last.
Yeah, I mean, you have San Francisco cracking down on it. They placed, I mean, you need now a license to operate Airbnb.
Yes.
And you have a lot of other cities that are passing very similar laws in doing that. And it's not that attractive for some people in some areas.
Right.
Yeah. So are you seeing much conversation with clients as far as Prop 10?
Not so much with Prop 10, more so with interest rates.
Okay, well, let's get into that because interest rates just hit 4.75 and it's the highest it's ever been in the last 7 years.
Which for those buyers that were, waiting out the seller's market, it's like, when you show them the interest rate and then now what they can afford, they're like, oh, shoot, I really do need to buy sooner rather than later. but it's such a tough conversation because yes, it's a hard pill to swallow now when prices are at the top.
Yes.
And so it's definitely something to navigate them through. And I've been doing a lot of buyer education on that. The California Association of Realtors has a great infographic that I've been sending out.
Yeah.
And
I usually, make sure that everybody gets an infographic because
yeah.
it's so much easier when it's laid out in that format.
It's
Because
visual.
it lets them know
Right.
this is your payment now. This is your payment, 4 or 5 months from now.
I bet you know which one I'm talking about
think
too.
so.
The purple one with yellow. Yeah, and
It's a good tool
absolutely
because it really lets them wrap their mind around it that rates are great still. They're amazing.
absolutely.
I mean, my parents paid like 12% or something crazy. So I think it's still a really great time. And I encourage, I think 2019, we're going to be above 5 very quickly. So, as they're waiting and they're seeing all these price cuts, I just try to let them know that that's, it's all relative to the interest rate. If you pick up something towards the end of the year, you're going to get a tax break. There's a lot of advantages to picking up something now, for my buyers.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see like a comparison because you do hear people talking about paying 10, 15, even 19% interest rate years ago.
Yep.
But the home prices were way lower back then, right?
True.
And so I would be, I'll have to look something up, but I would love to see some kind of comparison. Housing prices 30 years ago compared to now, interest rates, but also adjusted for inflation and
Yes.
the
Yeah, that would
market
be
of that
cool.
time. That would be very interesting. And
Yeah.
also salary pay. What's the affordability rate back then compared to now?
Right.
And so then I think you would be able to really compare, well, maybe, yeah, it might have been 12% back then, but if it was more affordable, no big deal.
Considerably more
Right.
affordable. I mean, we're just in different times where it's a huge concern. I wonder about my kids. I hope I'm in real estate that they'll own property, but I'm worried.
tell
What
peop-
they're going to be able to afford.
I tell people if you can qualify for a property and instead of buying your first home as a single family home, buy yourself a duplex, triplex, fourplex, live in one of the units, rent out the other ones.
It's an awesome,
Usually,
awesome way to
the
do it.
profit will cover some or most of the rent, if you will, of your own unit, and you're really living without any housing expense. And you own now a multi-unit.
Yes.
You do that for 2 years, save up money, go out, buy another one, move into that one. Now you end up with multiple unit buildings.
You have to have that investor mentality.
Yeah.
If you want to make it, an own property and own more than one, you have to think like an investor. That's it in California.
Yeah, I have that conversation with a lot of clients, but probably 1% of clients actually do it.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
And just, going halves on a property with somebody else that you trust, the trust being
Right.
a tough thing, but that's always something that one of my mentors has encouraged. Just pick up property with someone else and then sell it off or,
Yeah, you got to get creative.
yeah. I mean, it's really difficult to, as a single person, even married couple, to afford. So you get in with somebody that has the same mutual, interests, money.
Yeah.
Money coming from real estate.
So are you noticing the slowdown, though, in your business? Because there's a bit of a slowdown now, and people are wondering, is this a market shift, or is it the beginning of a correction, or the beginning of a crash? I personally don't think it's a crash, but what's your take on it? Are you seeing it in the business?
I don't think it's a crash. I don't think we're anywhere near a crash, nor do I believe that I will ever see anything like we lived through, the housing meltdown. I have noticed that it really turned a corner really fast at the end of summer or towards the end of summer. And that just, poof, it just happened. But again, I still encourage buyers to, take advantage of the winter market and the tax break, and that in 2019, I do believe that there will be more inventory, just like everything I've been reading says that more inventory in 2019 than the last 7 years or so. And I think that then we shift into a healthier market.
Agreed. Yeah, it's not
which
a
is
crash.
not terrible.
Right.
I don't think a healthy market is bad.
So you see a correction going to a more neutral, healthy market as
Yes.
opposed to a negative
I
market.
do, and that's what I share with my clients, and they always ask. So
Okay.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think that it's anywhere close to a crash.
I love when people are like, "It's going to crash, and I'm going to pick up that one for 200,000 less." And I said, "Go ahead and hold your breath for that."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, there are some people that are really rooting for another 2008 crash.
yeah, that's
because yeah, I mean, if
not
you're
good.
if you're
No.
waiting to buy a property, it's always nice to think, "Oh yeah, I got this property for a steal and I'm going to make so
Discount,
much
sure.
money." And yeah. But I agree with you. We're not going to see another crash like 2008. That was extremely unique. And again, if there's several great documentaries and books if you really want to get into why that happened. And it was a very, very complicated, sophisticated housing market that was tied in with a whole bunch of bad investments, bad insurance on these investments. It was a completely unique
Irresponsible lending like we've never seen
Y-
before.
Yeah, but see, the irresponsible lending, it wasn't always on the banks. The government really pushed them
Sure.
to do a lot of this lending. So there was a lot of
True.
encouragement even from the government. And then the packaging of these bad loans with other securities, and then the insurance of these securities, and then the insurance on top of that insurance. And you just created this big, giant house of cards, and it just fell down. And then they went to the extreme of trying to overcorrect it
Right.
and went one way.
Right.
But I think that was needed, right? It's kind of like the
Well, it
presidency.
helped.
You go a little bit crazy on the presidency. Now, hopefully, afterwards, we're going to correct it and go a little bit more neutral, right?
Yeah.
It was a
That's the hope.
terrible experience for homeowners that time during that time. But I think we recovered in record time. That's
Yeah.
but that's unique to California. I don't know that happened other places.
Yeah, yeah. And the Bay Area is a bubble within California. California is a bubble within the U.S.
Yes.
And here we have San Jose and San Francisco, two big cities in the world.
Metros.
Because
Awesome
exactly.
metros, yeah.
And it makes one giant metro area, and it's a very unique place. And there were other countries, like I went to Portugal a year and a half ago, and I went there for a couple weeks, and their economy crashed when our economy crashed because they were affected. There were other countries that were affected by debt, by the real estate market from here in the U.S. because there were a lot of investments made in the U.S. in the housing market, and it was all tied in globally. But their economy never recovered still to
Right.
this day. They're still struggling.
Yeah.
And, that was one of the side effects of the 2008 crash.
And there are little microcosms throughout the U.S. too, where it still hasn't recovered.
Yes.
Which, I can't imagine living there and then also having interest rates come up. That's got to be scary for those homeowners.
Yeah. So California Association of Realtors, they have a really great graph that, not so much an infographic, but it's a chart that has all the different counties in California, and they're constantly tracking the median price, right? So it was interesting to see like Alameda, and here's a perfect example of the market shift that we have today. From August of 17 to August of 18, there was an increase of 17% in appreciation, right, in values. But from July 18 to August 18, there was a drop of 5%.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where, like I was talking about, that corner just happened. It just turned.
Yeah.
It took a turn, and it was really fast and unexpected.
I was speaking with some of my colleagues, and even in July, they were like, where are the buyers?
Right.
We're sitting at open houses, and there's no one coming through. And the perspective was, well, everyone's still on vacation. Once school
Right.
hits, it's all going to be good again. Well, school hit.
Exactly.
And those open houses are still pretty barren.
The consensus with every agent I talk to and all different brokerages is the same. We're shifting somewhere to a better buyer's market. I'm not going to call it a buyer's market, but there's the shift, and the tides
Yeah.
are changing. And
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not quite yet a buyer's market. but
Right.
we're certainly starting to see a shift.
Maybe 2019 will be a little different.
More inventory. I mean, buyers are going to be, more inventory right now already.
Already.
So buyers can have their picking of what they want to look at. So
Right.
buyers are, I think, naturally going to look at, well, what are the nicer properties? What are the ones that are more affordable? I'm going to go for those first. I mean, you're going to really have to stage, do upgrades, and really have a presentable property. You're not going to just be able to put up something as is condition
and it fly off the market.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, the inventory in the spring was 3 months worth of inventory, which they say it's 6 months is the healthy market, and now we're at 4.2. So that was pretty fast.
It's really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in a matter of a month or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So looking around the Bay Area, are there any cities that you feel are up and coming or little hidden gems that you think people should consider buying in?
Absolutely.
I know we talked about Vallejo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably
Vallejo for
my
sure.
number one pick.
Mine as well. Yeah.
Yes.
The
Definitely Vallejo. Yeah, I concur.
the city of San Francisco and the city of Vallejo, they were pumping out marketing monies to market Vallejo because, they're one of their big ahas was you've got the ferry.
The ferry to SF.
And exactly, you
Proximity
can-
to SF.
Exactly. You
is
can live in the Architectural Heritage District and still ferry into San Francisco and not have to pay $3 million
Exactly.
for a humongous Victorian.
And the weather pattern's great.
right, yeah.
You know.
You don't have to deal with as many the raised bridge tolls either. If you take the
The
ferry.
bridge
True.
tolls, right? Yeah.
Ferrying to work just seems so East Coast and awesome. You know?
I would
like
love to take
Vallejo just seems
yeah.
like hipster, like fun and cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's up and coming.
They're gonna
certainly.
build a new ferry building at Mare Island too.
Oh, see.
So
Awesome.
I don't know.
Fun.
I don't know if they're going to move the current one and move it to Mare Island and have
Oh,
that as a main
really?
location, or they're going to build a second one. So I'm not sure on that, but they are going to build one in Mare Island. Just don't know what they're going to do with the old one. But Mare Island, they're also trying to turn that into the Alameda of
right.
Vallejo.
Oh, sure.
So they have what they're building out Wet Row, and Wet Row is like official from City of Vallejo. They're calling it Wet Row. So they have, I want to say, 2 beer companies.
Yes,
They
that's
have
what I
a
heard.
winery,
Yes.
and they have a distillery.
And Alameda is a great model. Too.
Exactly.
What a
Absolutely,
great place
yeah.
to live, right? Everybody loves Alameda.
Well, Alameda used to be a base. So was Mare Island. Just makes sense to copy it.
Both naval, right?
Yeah.
They were both- yeah.
Yep.
And talk about housing structure. There's huge vacant, what were they called? The base, right?
Yeah.
Where
Barracks.
The
where-
barracks.
Barracks.
That's
barracks.
it. Yep,
Yeah.
the barracks.
And that can be.
Why
but I
aren't
think
those
it's
being...
they would probably have to tear that. I just feel like they're
They do
so
tear
the
down,
building
yeah.
structures are so not unsound. Safety would be a concern, but all
The
that
land's
space
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Going
land
back
is there,
to
and that's the
land.
big thing. But you have the golf course there. They want to add some restaurants, and they want to add, I know, another winery, another distillery, and 2 more brewing companies. So
Holy
they
moly.
they also have Touro University there. So they could say it's, technically it's a college town,
Yeah.
right, with that university.
Private.
Yeah, but we're talking about medical. It's a doctors graduating from there, so they're somewhat partiers, but not huge
Right,
partiers. I think.
right. That's a upturn cycle there. in Vallejo.
Yeah.
Concord also, they're going to double the population of Concord with the development of the naval weapons area. So that will incorporate, I think, some good schools, which is what Concord has
They're
always
gonna
struggled.
double. They're gonna double.
Double the population
Wow.
with that project. The whole naval weapons area is converted into phases for homes, single family homes.
That's going to bring
new
a lot of
schools.
money to the
Finally,
city.
yes,
Yeah.
finally, new schools that are good. So that's going to be a big deal. I think
When does that
that's
start?
in 2019.
Okay,
I
so
think they're a
very
little
soon.
behind on it.
Every project's
as
a little
usual,
bit behind.
right?
Yeah. They were talking about Hilltop Mall doing the remodel, and then they're getting multiple development projects entitled there because with Hilltop Mall here in Richmond, they were supposed to begin in August to remodel, and I believe they're just starting this month. So again, they're behind, but it's going to take them about a year to remodel that mall. And then the plan is to build 3,000 to 5,000 residential units there.
It's great.
Great.
That's a good. So those are all good use of the land and
Yeah.
space and
Mhm.
need to be duplicated all over the
Yeah,
place here.
it's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you haven't had time, look at the plans that they have for Hilltop Mall. 24-hour fitness is going to double up in size. They have some fancy dim sum restaurant
Oh, great.
that you can find in Vegas and Hollywood, coming up to Richmond, of all places,
Nice.
which is cool.
Wow, right on.
They have about 27 restaurants going into the place. They're going to really try to model it to where it's food, activities, and experience, because they flat out said, look, you can't make money selling shoes and clothes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No malls exist that way.
Right.
And then the plan is to build the parking lot on top of the mall. That way, then the current parking lot is all housing.
Interesting.
Great.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. And they're going to be entitlement projects to where if you're a developer, you can buy 300 to 500 units, like buy the actual project
Right.
and then build it yourself. So that's going to be very interesting. They're building 2 Kaiser buildings that are going to house just office employees. It's like 500 employees there. So that's going to bring
That's
more
great.
jobs. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how all that develops in the next few years.
How exciting.
Yeah.
And
So
Concord is also doing that big push with the Visit Concord
Are they?
initiative.
Yeah,
It
well,
sure
makes
seems
sense.
like it. I see it
So-
everywhere.
It's already such a big city.
It is.
I mean, it's
yeah, it is.
crazy to think that it's going to
Well, it
double
feels like
in
that-
size.
Yeah, it also feels like that because it's right next to Walnut Creek, and Walnut Creek has so much development going on.
It does.
And just downtown, I mean, it's all condo buildings, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right around BART. Bunch of millennials like to take BART into their jobs in the city and live in Walnut Creek, sunny Walnut
Yeah.
Creek, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And then Martinez too. They're opening up their own little breweries and pubs, and they're
Cute town. Martinez has always
yeah.
been. They're very protective. They don't like a lot of change.
I heard
So-
recently that they were thinking about doing a ferry in Martinez as well. But I still haven't seen any developments for that yet. But that would be amazing because that's just another, less pricey place for folks to go where they could be able to still get
Make it
into the city. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a place in the South Bay, a city in the South Bay or Southeast Bay that you would think, hey, check this place out? I would have to say Livermore, even though it's expensive,
absolutely,
but
Livermore.
you have a lot of wineries there. So if you're someone that's really, really into wine tasting, I think just living by all the wineries would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And
I
you
just
don't-
think of
and it's
larger
cheaper than Napa.
properties. It is
Absolutely.
larger
yeah.
properties in Livermore.
Yeah. Well,
Popular.
it's like going to Brentwood too, right? You have these 3,000, 3,500 square foot homes that are just scattered in neighborhoods. Get a lot more bang for your money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we're going to cut it off at there. So the main thing with Prop 10, vote no. If you vote yes, you're actually repealing the Costa-Hawkins. But if you vote no, we're going to keep it status quo. And I think that's probably what we need to do because the proponents in favor of Prop 10, there hasn't really been a solution. So you get rid of Costa-Hawkins, what next? It's only going to cause some more issues, less inventory. But what are we doing? And I feel rent control is kind of like that. It's a temporary solution. It only helps a very, very few select people. But most people, it hurts because if you look at the cities with the highest rents, you have Oakland, San Francisco,
Exactly.
Berkeley, all with rent
I
control
wonder why, right?
for many, many
Yeah.
years. Exactly. Yeah. So, Cynthia, let's start with you. If someone wants to contact you, do business, what's the best way for them to contact you?
On my work phone at 415-802-4000, or they can email me. I'm at cpeterson@apr.com. And also, make sure that you're registered to vote. We got an email
big deal.
blast.
Yes.
Yeah, that I think it was over 20% of realtors are not registered to vote. Your voice matters. Make
Oh,
sure
sure.
that you are registered and get educated and get out there and vote.
Eva?
Right. So my cell phone is 925-726-9409 or email me at eva@myrealtoreva.com.
Perfect. So thank you both for being on the podcast again. And
Thank you.
We'll have to do another one down the road.
Definitely.
This
Thanks
is
for having
fun.
us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Levin. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at marcguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.